Today, I want to talk about the definition of dreams, different types of dreams. We'll talk about lucid dreaming, and we'll talk about how lucid dreaming and mindfulness relate. Starting with defining dreams. So there are two dictionary definitions of dreams. The first definition is the one that we're all more familiar with, which is dreams during sleep. So a series of thoughts, images, or emotions occurring during sleep. And the way that I would sum it up is it's a conscious experience during sleep. Whether we're aware of the conscious experience or not, that's a different story. That's what we'll get to. But the second definition of dreams is an experience of waking life having the characteristics of a dream, such as a visionary creation of the imagination. In other words, a daydream. That should hit home, is that there's two types of dreams. There's this dreams when we're asleep, and there's the dreams when we're awake, and that's daydreaming. Again, dreams are conscious experiences, mental models or mental experiences that occurred during sleep. In dreams, we can experience all of our senses, including hearing, smelling, and tasting. We also experience spatial awareness, or the brain's vestibular system is active, allowing us to feel motion, such as flying or falling or just moving through the dream world. Regarding dream imagery, it's not just random activity of the brain. The brain produces a wide range of visual effects or experiences, and in dreams you have the full range of brightness or focus or salience versus what's in the periphery. Everything that you can experience in the visual sense in waking life, you can experience in dreams as well. It's not just your sense perception that happens in dreams, it's also ideas. Emotions are very real in dreams. And it's been said that this is the birthplace of creativity. This is where ideas come from, is the dreaming mind, the subconscious. So these dreams during sleep, this first definition of dreams, they are fully immersive, multi-sensory experiences. We can experience all of the senses. It's not just seeing and hearing. You can feel, again, you can feel motion, you can smell and taste, and you can feel pleasure, and you can also feel pain. So it's a fully multi-sensory experience that the brain can produce while we're sleeping. As I mentioned earlier, I want to talk about breaking down certain terms that help us understand the difference between dreams when we're asleep, dreams when we're awake, and how we can bring more awareness to our dreams, whether we're asleep or awake. And this is really the essence of how lucid dreaming and mindfulness relate with each other. But let's talk about the terms. So consciousness refers to the overall state of mental experience. So it involves the ability to have thoughts, feelings, sensory experiences, and internal representations of the world. Again, it's like a mental model. Just like dreams, consciousness is our representation of reality. So it's our personal version of reality. It's how we experience reality. It is subjective reality. And to get really technical, I believe it is subjective space-time, because there's the space, there's the here, and then time is the when, right? The now. So consciousness is the personal reality, personal space-time, or a subjective model of the world, the universe. So that's consciousness. There's a lot there, but just to have sort of like a framework to understand, consciousness is the experience itself. The term awake, we use that interchangeably with like awareness, I think. The Buddha is the awakened one. So I don't want to split hairs really, but just for simplicity, and as a sleep technologist, somebody who works in sleep medicine, we use the term awake to just mean not asleep. So there's two different states of consciousness. There's the waking state, which is this waking reality that we all share. And then there's the sleeping state where you go to sleep. Your brain is still active, but you're not perceiving the outside world anymore. And then that brings us to the next term, awareness. Awareness is independent of wakefulness or sleep. So it's separate. You can be awake and not really aware. Like you'd be distracted or oblivious to what's going on in the present moment. And one reason why practicing mindfulness is so useful is that it reveals how much time we've been wasting in a distracted state, not really aware, not really paying close attention. And that's where daydreaming comes in. How much time are we spending awake daydreaming, not paying attention to the here and now, lost in thought? And that's why mindfulness can be very valuable. But so awareness is kind of like the reflection of the fact that we are conscious. What we're aware of is what our attention is focused on. So when we're asleep, usually we lose awareness, but we can reactivate awareness during sleep. And that is what the lucid state is. When we're asleep, we're in different stages of sleep, which if you want, we're going to do a Q&A in about 10 minutes or so after I finish. And we can talk about the stages of sleep and we can get technical. Like that's kind of what I do for a living. I'm a sleep technologist, so we get very technical about the different stages of sleep. We usually don't talk about the subjective experience, but that's what I'm mostly interested in. And the point is, we can be aware in all stages of sleep. It's just a skill set that we have to learn to reactivate awareness in light stages of sleep, deep stages of sleep, and REM sleep. And usually when people have lucid dreams, they're in REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. But the point is, lucid dreams happen when we're asleep. We're not awake, but we are aware. So moving on to mindfulness. So I like to characterize mindfulness by comparing it to its opposite, mindlessness. So mindlessness versus mindfulness. You could say mindlessness is being distracted or focused on another time and place, whereas mindfulness is being present and focusing on the here and now. Mindlessness would be being very reactive, emotionally reactive, maybe overreactive, whereas with mindfulness, you're responsive, deliberate, responding on purpose in a way that you choose. Mindlessness involves being impatient and striving, and mindfulness helps us practice patience and non-striving. Mindlessness is closed-minded, maybe rigid, clinging to beliefs or ideas, whereas mindfulness involves being curious and open. Mindlessness could be judgmental and critical, and mindfulness is non-judgmental. So that's the gist. Jon Kabat-Zinn, founder of the MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction program, says mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And so what I like to focus on here is that mindfulness is awareness that arises in the present moment. And when we sleep, we can bring that awareness back. And that's what lucid dreaming is. It's awareness during sleep, present moment awareness during a dream. So there's a really cool theory on why we dream and the functionality of dreams. It's called the continuity hypothesis. And it states that our dreams are not separate or disconnected or isolated mental processes. They're actually an extension of our waking thoughts and emotions and experiences, or an extension of ourselves, let's say. There is continuity rather than discontinuity between the qualities of consciousness while awake and the qualities of consciousness while asleep. Now, I just want to say, for a second before I move on, again, this is why I defined or tried to define what consciousness is, because it's not intuitive to, especially if you haven't had a lucid dream before, to understand that we can have conscious experiences while we're sleeping. It sort of doesn't compute, right? How can we have an experience if we're not aware of the experience? How can we be conscious when we're asleep? And that's why I had to break up those terms, because consciousness is the experience and awareness is something completely separate. So you can, and you do every night, have these dreams, these conscious experiences, and whether you're aware of them or not, and you probably are not aware unless everybody's really good at lucid dreaming, these conscious experiences are happening just under the radar, behind the curtain, without us being aware of them at all. And maybe we remember some of it when we wake up. Maybe we remember a lot of it. The dream recall ability varies from person to person, but that's another skill that you can learn to improve. But anyway, we have these experiences every single night, and this continuity hypothesis purports that the qualities of consciousness while awake and the qualities of consciousness while asleep and in dreams are really very similar, especially once you get past like the surface level analysis of dreams, where it's just like random imagery that doesn't seem to make sense. When you look closer and you understand what the imagery represents, it's very relevant to waking life. And there's a lot to say here, so let me just stick to the script. We can discuss this more too in the Q&A, but let me just get through through my talk here. So the contents of our dreams, they reflect our personality traits, like how we would respond in a situation in waking life. That's typically how we respond in these situations in dreams as well. Recent life events tend to show up in dreams. Ongoing concerns or unresolved issues from our lives tend to show up in dreams. The things that we're stressed out about in life tend to show up in dreams. And this indicates a continuous link between the waking and dreaming states. Harvard researcher Robert Stickgold says that one function of dreams is merging or integrating lessons from the past, like lessons from like your childhood or adolescence or early adulthood, with more recent lessons, like something that happened to you today or last week, or like something that was significant in your life that you could have learned from. Your dreams will merge those past experiences with the more recent experience, and you'll see it in the dream as something very odd and strange and like how can I put it, like metaphorical, happening before your very eyes. Like the reality, the whole dream world creates this metaphor, and the metaphor is a representation of your past experiences merging with your more recent experiences. So like, for example, I've lived in a few different cities. I grew up in Philadelphia, went to college in Pittsburgh, and now I live in San Diego. And I have a lot of dreams where the place I'm in is a combination of Pittsburgh and San Diego beaches. Obviously, that doesn't make sense in the real world, but it's a dream specific quality that the mind somehow merges recent experiences with past experiences. And those are just locations, but it also happens with conceptualizations, or like new relationships with people could be very similar to relationships you've had in the past. So you might have a dream where you're seeing the new relationship person, but it's really representing the old relationship. And this is why, these representations sometimes take some interpretation to unpack and figure out and understand what the dream is representing. So now let's talk about lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is when you realize you're dreaming during the dream, and lucid dreams tend to be more positive in emotional affect than non-lucid dreams. That's because along with the awareness that you have comes a sense of freedom and liberation, because you realize it's just a dream. It's my dream. It's my mind. It's not a real situation. Usually dreams are a little bit more stressful, either some level of anxiety, or some of them are just outright nightmares where they're horrifying and extremely stressful. But if you know it's just a dream, if you realize this isn't real, it's not a real threat, and you don't have to run because it can't really hurt you or can't really cause whatever problem you're worried about, you're free to do whatever you want. And that's liberating. So the awareness that comes with realizing you're just dreaming is therapeutic in itself, because it can free you from the mental constraint of thinking that you're in a fight or flight situation. And this sense of liberation from the stressful situation carries over into waking life, because the emotions felt in dreams are very real. Even though the situation is not real, you feel the sense of achievement or confidence, or just a relief of not having to fight or run. And when you wake up, that emotional sense carries over into waking life. So there's like a momentum you get when you wake up from a lucid dream. And this is not just my experience. This is my experience. but this is also pretty well researched, and anecdotally, hundreds and hundreds of lucid dreamers, thousands, have said over the years that their lucid dreams are more fun and more positive than their non-lucid dreams tend to be. And again, it comes back to this idea of, or this phenomenon of awareness. There's just more awareness in lucid dreams. You asked earlier about Carl Jung. Here's a quote from Carl Jung. The dream is a small hidden door in the innermost recesses of the soul, which opens to that which is not yet conscious. So I'm just going to say that again. The dream is a small hidden door in the innermost recesses of the soul, which opens to that which is not yet conscious. So through awareness, we can be transformative. We can shine the light of awareness onto the shadow self, right? And shadow just means there's no awareness there. There's no light there. So it's like the darkness created because there's light in some areas of the mind or in the subconscious, and there's no light or no awareness on other areas of your mind or yourself that you're not aware of yet. Really, those are all just opportunities. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to run away from or repress or keep hidden away. It's just an opportunity to learn more about yourself. We're dreaming every night for a few hours. And so every single night is an opportunity to shine more light of awareness onto this part of the mind, which brings us back to mindfulness. So there's an analogy here. There's two arrows. An archer shoots one arrow at you and it's going to hit you. And there's nothing you can do about that. It's not going to kill you. It's going to hurt. It's going to be unpleasant, but it will hit you. The first arrow represents our negative events in our lives, negative things that happen to us. Like it could be some adverse event that happens in our life. It could just be negative thoughts or emotions that pop up. And this is inevitable. So it's just a part of life. But the archer is there shooting a second arrow at you right after the first one. And the second arrow represents our reaction to the first arrow. So it represents our negative, reactionary, impulsive response to once we get hit with the first arrow. But it's the second arrow that we can prepare for. So we can put up a shield so that we don't get hit with the second arrow. And the shield is deciding how we want to respond to the first one. So this is essentially the practice of mindfulness, choosing to respond mindfully when anything happens in our life, rather than reacting mindlessly. And so it's that choice that is the shield that protects us from the second arrow. We don't really have this sense of choice unless we have this sense of awareness of what's happening first. So awareness, again, is really important when it comes to mindfulness, which brings us back to the second definition of dreams, daydreaming. Its default mode of the mind is basically daydreaming, reactionary, mindless. We have these like spontaneous abstract thoughts that just pop into our head, which are unintentional. And that's when we're distracted. That's when we're spacing out, not paying attention to the here and now. But you can also kind of daydream intentionally. And that's thinking in the abstract in a deliberate way. So like lucid dreaming involves being asleep, being aware you're dreaming. Then we come to what do you do in a lucid dream? And when you're awake and you're daydreaming, you can become aware that you're daydreaming. You snap out of it, let's say. But what do you do? And you want to stay in the daydream. And if you do, you could say that lucid daydreaming is reasoning or calculating, strategizing, or reconsidering something that happened in the past. You're in an abstract state of thought, kind of a dream. You're replaying a situation that happened, or you're doing this on purpose and you're doing it to be productive. And there's a big difference between doing it deliberately and doing it unintentionally. And it can be unhealthy when we do it unintentionally, compulsively, because that's when we start ruminating. That's when we start worrying. And there's no real goal there. And we don't tend to worry on purpose. We don't tend to worry deliberately. We don't ruminate and stress about things that happened in the past on purpose. It just happens. We're not even aware we're doing it. It's just like a trait. So again, awareness can help cut that cycle of negative thought process. In other words, it can help bring awareness to the daydream that's happening, the bad daydream. And then you can choose mindfully how to respond. So you can see this is very similar to lucid dreaming and mindfulness are essentially the same thing. It's just two different states of consciousness. When you're awake, bring more awareness into your default mode of the mind and your typical thought patterns where you're not really trying, you're not really conscious of, or you're not really aware of what you're doing. And during sleep, you can reactivate awareness and practice these principles of mindfulness as well, the mindful attitudes. You can apply them in the lucid state. So dream yoga practitioners, by the way, dream yoga means stretching of the mind, right? Yoga is stretching of the body. Dream yoga is stretching of the mind. Dream yoga practitioners, experienced yogis and teachers, refer to sleep with no lucidity and no awareness as sleep of ignorance. So once you can attain lucidity in dreams, because you can do whatever you want, you can indulge in any of your desires, you name it, you're free to do it. It's a safe space. No, it's completely private. Nobody else knows what you're doing in there. And there are really like no real world consequences. It's just you and yourself in a fully multisensory, fully immersive reality simulation, and you can do whatever you want. So in the first stages of dream yoga, that's actually recommended to have as much fun as possible and get as familiar as you can and comfortable in the lucid state and play around, enjoy, But then after a while, you don't want to really just indulge your impulses and practice that, because again, the things that you do in dreams, you learn from those experiences, and that stuff carries over into your waking life, and it'll influence your thought patterns and behavior and how you respond to situations in the waking life. So while it's useful to help you stay lucid for longer periods of time, it's not useful in that it's not maybe the best way to behave in life, is to just be hedonistic and overindulgent. So it's recommended that once you get comfortable being able to practice lucid dreaming, you start to be more disciplined. You start to involve the mindful attitudes. You be more compassionate towards yourself, rather than if a threat shows up in the dream, instead of fighting and winning, which is better than running away, because you're no longer framing yourself as a prey animal, let's say. You're framing yourself as a predator. If you had to pick one, it's better to be a predator than prey. It's better to eat and survive and be strong than it is to be eaten and live in fear. But that's not optimal. It's not the best way to deal with threats in your dreams. What's recommended is that you treat the threat as a part of yourself, which it is. It's a representation of something in your mind, something that you're concerned about, something you're afraid of perhaps, but it's your representation. It's your mind's model of the threat. It's not a real threat in the dream. It's a representation. So what's recommended is that you treat that as a part of yourself. You ask it, how can I help you? What are you here for? Why are you chasing me? How can we work together? How can we cooperate to resolve this problem? So it's about sort of counseling the threatening thing and working pragmatically towards a solution. And you can do that in the lucid state. And that's kind of the essence of what we learn when we become more skilled at mindfulness. Is it doesn't have to be so much of a conflict. It can just be, you can accept things as they are, and you can let go of the battle, the struggle, the reasons for fighting against the way things are. You can just kind of let it happen, go with the flow, and work towards a solution almost professionally. You could be more professional with yourself. So that's what's recommended in dream yoga, that you do with your own dreams and the bad things that happen in dreams. If you're lucid, you can work directly with that negative stuff in your mind in your dreams. Here's a quote. With dream yoga, instead of using your mind as an entertainment center, you turn it into a laboratory. You experiment with dream meditations and study your mind using the medium of dreams. For example, one dream yoga practice is to simply change objects in your dream. You can turn a dream table into a flower, or transform a boat into a car. And you can also add or subtract things, make things appear or disappear, or grow or shrink, change their size. But why would you do this? It seems kind of trivial. Here's why. Just as dream objects can be transformed in dreams, so emotional states and conceptual limitations can be transformed in waking life. So again, dreams are like representations or metaphors that represent important things in waking life. So if you can change these things in the dreams, that representation will be useful in waking life. So with the experience of the dreamy and malleable nature of dreams, we can transform depression into happiness, fear into courage, anger into love, hopelessness into faith, distraction into presence, and we can challenge the boundaries that constrict you. So the purpose of these practices of practicing lucid dreaming mindfully is to integrate lucidity and flexibility and awareness with every moment of life, and to let go of the heavily conditioned way of ordering reality, making meaning, and being trapped in delusion. So I think we can stop there. Okay, so I got some questions here. My app is called Mind Awake. Check out my course here on Insight Timer. I'm not supposed to promote other stuff, but since you asked, my app is called Mind Awake. It's a lucid dreaming app, and I also help with sleep problems like insomnia and stuff in there. Yeah. And Bear, your question. Sometimes I wonder whether all of my life is a lucid dream. So there's a Western way of answering that question, that comment, and there's an Eastern way. The Eastern way, the Buddhist way, is that life is but a dream. Your waking life reality is produced by your brain, which is true. Your subjective reality, your moment-to-moment experience are all conscious experiences produced by your brain. So you could say it's all a dream. And that's why I like to differentiate between sleep and awake. When we're asleep, it's obvious that those experiences are dreams. When we're awake, it's not so obvious. It just seems like we're perceiving the outside world as it really is. But if you're familiar at all with neuroscience, and I have more slides on this to break down how it's proven scientifically that we are perceiving what our brain is creating for us to perceive. We're not perceiving the outside world as it really is. We can't, because it's way, way, way too complex. Let me just wrap up that comment there. The Eastern philosophy is, yes, all of life is a dream. The mind is creating every experience we have from moment to moment, so you could call that a dream. The Western philosophy is, no, we're awake and we're asleep, and when we're asleep, those are dreams. And if we're aware, those are lucid dreams. When we're awake, we're awake. It's not a dream, it's reality. We're engaging with the real world, we're engaging with real people, and these relationships are real. Now, there's a gray area here because all of our memories of all of our relationships are just mental processes. We have to engage with our memories when we're not engaging with people in real time, in the here and now. And that makes up a lot of our life, is our memories, how we relate with our own thoughts and our own opinions and our own mental frameworks. So life is very dreamlike because it's all processed through the mind. So it's a tricky question. Is it possible for everyone to lucid dream? Great question. Yes. You just have to practice. It's really that simple. Number one, you have to improve your dream recall. So you have to keep a dream journal. Write in your dream journal every morning, first thing when you wake up, even if you don't remember anything. And that's really important. If you don't remember anything, write down, I didn't remember my dreams, but I wish I did, and tomorrow I will. And then you get in the habit of writing. And then these other parts of your mind respond. They get the signal that, okay, we're trying to remember our dreams. I'll help. And it sort of cooperates with you. And then after day 2 or 3 or 4, you'll be astonished by how much you remember your dreams. Then once you start to familiarize with what your dreams are like and notice the differences between waking life and dreaming life, and really just pay close attention. Bring more awareness to your dreams however you can, even if it's retrospective, even if you're just looking at a dream journal entry and rereading it and reconsidering what it was like. You're bringing more awareness to your dreams. You're connecting the dots. You're bridging the gap between your waking life consciousness and your dreaming life consciousness. Then you start to look for dream signs, which are clues basically that show you that you're dreaming. So these could be weird coincidences that if you run into somebody that you haven't seen in years, that could be a dream sign. Because, like I said, we merge recent experiences with past experiences. So in dreams, this stuff happens all the time. You can see people who aren't even alive anymore in dreams. And usually this does not trigger awareness because people don't consider that it's a dream. It's just like business as usual. Oh yeah, I'm talking to Elvis, or I'm talking to Ben Franklin, or like, anybody who is no longer alive. It could be a dead relative or something. That should clue you into the fact that you're dreaming. You should be like, wait a minute, this is impossible. It must be a dream. So when you start reading through your dream journal entries, you'll see impossible things happening all the time. Just highlight those things. Just like circle them. Say, okay, this would be a good clue. Here's where I should have recognized I was dreaming. Get in that practice, and you'll start to have lucid dreams. Is it really important to wake up in the middle of the night to practice lucid dreaming? It is a technique that you can choose to try. And if you want to try it tonight, or any night really that you can spare, waking up for like a half an hour to an hour, I recommend it. At the beginning of the night, the first half of the night, we mostly are in deeper sleep. Yeah, good point. You don't want to ruin your sleep. You do want to prioritize sleep. You want to protect your sleep first, is more important. But if you do it on the weekend, it's a good idea because maybe you can sleep in a little bit. And half an hour in the middle of the night isn't going to ruin your sleep. It's just going to be a brief disruption. But if you can do it, I recommend it. Maybe once a month, a couple times a month. So what you do is, since we go into deep sleep in the first half of the night, we don't dream as much in the first half of the night. In the second half of the night, that's when we have longer rapid eye movement periods. So that second half of the night, the final 1/3 of the night, let's say, is the best opportunity to have lucid dreams. So if you wake up about 2 hours before you're supposed to wake up, let's say after 6 hours of sleep instead of 8 hours of sleep, you wake up, set an alarm for, let's say you go to bed at midnight. Set your alarm for 6 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. And wake up, get out of bed, sit down and write about the dream you want to have, or meditate and envision the dream you want to have, or watch videos on lucid dreaming, or read about lucid dreaming. Really just get your mind ready and prime your mind for lucidity when you go back to sleep, because you're going to go back to bed after you do these exercises, which really there's like a long list of things you could do when you're awake. But because when you go back to bed, you will be in a REM period, you're preparing to go right into a lucid dream when you go back to sleep. So this is called the wake back to bed technique. You can look it up, wake back to bed. And it works really, really well. sometimes when you go back to sleep, you just stay conscious, you stay aware as you drift off into sleep. And that can be really interesting, and you can just all of a sudden be in a lucid dream. So it's very powerful. But you don't have to do it that way. That's just one option. So good question, Sasha. Uh, I recall very few dreams. Does that indicate something like lack of awareness? It just indicates lack of awareness of your dreams. But again, if you try to remember your dreams, it will work. It might take a week, it might take one day, but we don't all naturally think of it as like a skill set, or think of it like fitness, really. Like mindfulness is sort of known as mental fitness. You have to train, you have to practice, you have to build up these new habits, healthy habits. So with dream recall, it's the same thing. Try to remember your dreams. Keep a dream journal next to your bed. Write in it every morning, even if you don't remember anything. Eventually, your mind will respond and you will start to remember your dreams. So just work on it and you'll improve. I'm always waking up 3 to 4 hours after I fall asleep, not by choice. That's very common. Um, you know, this is more of a discussion because there's a lot of variability here. I have another course on preventing insomnia, or managing insomnia if you already have it. So find that course. That's also in the app too, but find that course on my Insight Timer teacher profile page. It's also a mindfulness-based course on insomnia. Sometimes people wake up in the middle of the night and can't fall back to sleep, and that's like a common thing that happens with insomnia, but that doesn't mean you definitely have insomnia. It's just, there's a lot to talk about there. Okay, Sandeep says, lucid dreaming is very popular among those that talk about manifestation and habit formation groups. Yes, I have insight there. I think lucid dreaming is the most important thing you should learn if you really want to get good at manifestation. Because when you're doing the manifestation process practices, you're visualizing like the life that you want as if it's already happening. And what better state of consciousness to do that in than in a dream? Because it's fully immersive. You're in this other dimension. You're in this reality that's created by your mind. And it's fully multisensory. It seems like a real place. It seems like you're in another dimension. That's the place to envision the kind of world you want to live in, the kind of reality that you want to manifest. Whereas if you do it when you're awake, it's just like a daydream. It's like a lucid daydream. So there's a lot to talk about there, but reach out to me. We'll talk more about that. I do notice that I dream more after I fall back asleep from waking in the middle of the night. Great. Yeah. So again, the second half of the night, we have more REM periods, rapid eye movement periods, and that's when our dreams are more vivid, detailed, and easier to remember. We do dream in the other stages of sleep. There is some kind of conscious experience happening in those other stages, but it's more like dream mentation. It's not like as vivid and story-like as REM sleep dreams. It's more just like I was floating in space, or I saw the color green, or like, it was a good mood. Those are the kind of dreams that happen in the light stages of sleep or in deep sleep. But when you go back to sleep after your middle of the night awakening, most likely you will be in REM sleep and you will remember your dreams more. I recommend, Jen, that you write them down. Just write them down and then go back to sleep and forget about them until you go back and reread them in your journal. What if it's hard for you to fall back to sleep because you've already slept for 6 hours? You have to just give it a shot. You have to experiment. This is why I recommend not doing it all the time and maybe only doing it once a month. Everyone's different. You won't know until you try. It depends on your particular sleep drive and whether you're sleep deprived or not. If you're sleep deprived, it's going to be really hard to stay awake in the middle of the night. It's a discussion because it's so idiosyncratic. It's so individualized. But it's a good question. I would not be able to get back to sleep if I did a wake back to bed method, especially if I had light exposure. Okay, so don't do it. That's fine. You don't have to do that technique. It's just one of many, and it's like a quick and easy way to have lucid dreams. There's a supplement that you can take. It's called galantamine. That is a memory enhancement supplement. When it comes to this lucid dreaming kind of practice, what we're doing is remembering that we're dreaming. It's like, oh yeah, I'm dreaming right now. It's like a recollection. Part of the practice is working with this one type of memory called prospective memory. A lot of memories are just retrospective. Prospective memory is like sort of working with your mind so that you remember to remember something in the future. It's like setting a reminder for the future. One of the practices is basically setting your intention to become lucid when you are dreaming throughout the night. So you tell yourself, tonight, when I'm dreaming, I will realize I'm dreaming. And that is setting your intention, and that is working with your prospective memory. And galantamine is a memory enhancement supplement. It helps to like somehow neurologically enhance or bring more like vibrance to dreams, and it makes it easier to remember that you're dreaming. So I have a client who has REM sleep disorder, no sleep paralysis. Over time, it dries your brain and causes neurological disorders like Parkinson's and dementia. Any suggestions? She's in despair and showing these symptoms. Yeah, I mean, REM sleep disorder or REM behavior disorder? Is it like REM disorder as in she's not getting enough REM sleep? This is a clinical question, and she should see a sleep doctor or a neurologist. Um, you know, it's a medical question, so it should be answered medically by a medical professional. There's REM sleep disorder. There's REM behavior disorder, which is when you kind of don't go into sleep paralysis and you act out your dreams. Is that what you mean? Yeah, REM behavior. Okay. They're treating symptoms. What causes the non-paralysis? Yeah, it's a neurological thing, maybe like neurotransmitter hormone imbalance type of thing. Um, I don't know. It's neurophysiological that causes. So to everybody else, when we go to sleep, we go into REM sleep specifically, all of our muscle tone is suppressed. So we go into a state of sleep paralysis. Now, this happens to everybody every night. Every time we go into REM sleep, we cannot move our bodies. Usually, we're just not aware of this because we're unaware completely. We're sleeping. We're just dreaming non-lucidly. There's no awareness. So it doesn't matter to us that we can't move. But we cannot move. I promise you that. And the evolutionary argument for why sleep paralysis happens during REM sleep is so that we don't act out our dreams, so we don't get up, sleepwalk, and jump out the window. But two things. With REM behavior disorder, that sleep paralysis mechanism doesn't work properly, and you are able to act out your dreams. So people kick and punch and scream and sometimes get up and move around. And that can be dangerous for the bed partner and for the patient who has REM behavior disorder. The pathology of it, like the physical pathology of it, is a technical brain related question that I wish I knew, like wish I had the answer for, like how to nip it in the bud is I bet what you're trying to, like what causes it on a neurological level. I can't say, but so that great question, and that sort of segues us to the other thing I was going to say, which is when you start practicing lucid dreaming, you might realize that you can't move because you may become aware during maybe kind of like a transitional state in between awake and asleep. It's like a gray area, like where you're not quite awake, you're not quite asleep. The features of dreaming start to arise, and you might start to see things that aren't really there. Like you might start to hallucinate. So they're called hypnagogic hallucinations. And that can be very scary if you don't know what the hell's going on. It can be really scary, especially if you don't know what's going on because you can't move. And they might be disturbing images. But if you know it's just a part of the dream process, you can just relax, wait for it to pass. It will pass within 30 seconds, maybe a minute max. And what you can do is just use it for entertainment value and just focus on the details of it if you want. Just remind yourself it's going to pass. Focus on your breath if you can. Just be patient and just try to be interested in the experience because it's so strange. It cannot hurt you. It is not a real threat. The paralysis will pass. You'll either wake up in a dream and you'll be in a lucid state and then you'll have complete freedom to move around in the dream, or you'll actually wake up in waking life and you can move again. Total non-threat. It will not hurt you. It's just that you're aware when usually you're asleep, and when you're asleep in REM sleep, you can't move. And if you're in that transitional state, you might not be able to move too. So there's a lot to talk about there, but that's the gist. Sleep trackers and smartwatches. So they're like 70% accurate. It's like better than nothing if for some reason you want to track your sleep stages. But I don't. So, okay, what's your question? Sleep trackers show sleep stages, but they don't seem to reflect what I experienced when I slept. Well, they can't. It depends on what you mean by what you experienced. Like what you experience when you sleep, you'd have to be lucid during sleep to be aware of what's going on when you're sleeping. Otherwise, you're only experiencing your awakenings. So maybe you woke up at 2 a.m., let's say, for 15 minutes, and you remembered what that was like, and maybe your sleep tracker didn't notice that you woke up. So that's fine. They're not that accurate. And I just did a video on YouTube about this, but there's a new term called orthosomnia, where people get like obsessed over their sleep score and their sleep data from their wearables. I have this Garmin, but I don't look at my sleep score because there's nothing you can really do to improve your sleep stages. Like let's say it says you slept fully from 11 o'clock until 8 o'clock in the morning. You got 9 hours of sleep, but you didn't get really much, deep sleep. What are you supposed to do about that? Like just worry about it, really. It's just not necessary. The thing with insomnia is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if you bring too much awareness to things about your sleep that you can't change and you can't control, it might just cause you to worry and concern yourself with things that don't really matter. It's what's more important is that you feel well rested enough throughout the day. And there's a lot to cover here. There's a lot of detail to go into and a lot of idiosyncrasy there. And again, that I have that course here on Insight Timer about insomnia, so we could chat on there. I also offer insomnia coaching, one-on-one coaching for lucid dreaming, one-on-one coaching for insomnia. So you can find that on my website too. Please reach out to me if you want to do that one-on-one coaching. Sleep trackers can be good, they can be bad. It depends on what your relationship is with them. They're not that accurate, but it's better than nothing if you want to get a better sense of how you slept, I guess. I don't know. I don't think they're that useful. They're cool, but I just don't think they're that useful. Yeah. Like I went to bed and fell right to sleep, and the tracker said I hadn't gone to bed yet. Yeah, they're not that accurate. This is common. This is a common issue. It's like, hey, it's not tracking very accurately. Like, yeah. It also said REM earlier at night, but I woke up dreaming in the morning. Well, you have REM stages of sleep throughout the night. At the beginning of the night, they're shorter. They're like 10 minutes. So every 90 minutes, we go through the full cycle of sleep stages. So let's say you go to bed at 9 o'clock. By 10:30, you've gone through stage 1 and 2, which is lighter sleep. You've gone through stage 3 for most of that hour and a half, and then a little bit of REM sleep. And then at 10:30, you're going to start over, stage 1, 2, 3, and then a little bit more REM sleep. And then towards the end of the night, the REM periods or towards the early morning, the REM periods are going to be longer, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. If you sleep till 10 a.m., you sleep for 10 hours, 12 hours, and like your REM periods at the end of that are going to be like an hour or two. Yeah, the sleep trackers. So what I do in the sleep clinic is we put electrodes on people's scalps and we look at the actual electrical activity from the brain, and that goes through a transducer and goes into sleep software, and we see the little brain waves on the screen. And that's the only way to see what stage of sleep you're in. Otherwise, you're using other metrics like body movement with an accelerometer to guess what stage of sleep you're in. And so these trackers are, unless the tracker has some kind of electrode that you can stick on your head, you're not getting brain waves, and therefore it doesn't know exactly what stage of sleep you're in. It has to guess. They're not great. And even if they were great, what are you supposed to do with all that data? Like, if your sleep score is not great, what do? They don't give you those answers. So that's why I made those courses on insomnia, how to prevent insomnia, how to better relate with your own sleep, how to understand sleep, like sleep drive, circadian rhythms, the different stages of sleep, when insomnia is a problem and when it's not a problem. For example, if you have a couple of bad nights, that's not a problem. You can just let it go. If you have very frequent bad nights because you were just in a car accident, or you just got a new job, or you just moved, or somebody in the family died, or some major life event happened, and you got a month of bad sleep, that's very short term, and it's not chronic insomnia until it's been 3 months or more. All these details matter because it helps people understand whether they should be worried or not, whether they should see a doctor or not, whether they need therapy or medication or intervention at all, or it's just going to resolve on its own in time if you learn to just kind of let it go. People don't know, and they won't get those answers just from a sleep tracker. The sleep tracker will give them just enough information to maybe know whether they should worry or not, but it's not enough. It's not enough insight. It's not enough sleep education, sleep health education. It's missing that part. It's what I've learned in the sleep medicine clinic. I've learned that insomnia is the number one sleep complaint over sleep apnea. And in the insomnia patient population is underserved. There are not enough therapists out there who do cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And there are millions of people who have insomnia that just don't know what to do about it. And they live with it for years or decades, and it ruins their life. Same thing with nightmares. PTSD nightmares are absolutely debilitating. And there are simple behavioral techniques you can learn to stop the vicious cycle of nightmares and of insomnia. So that's why, like, when I see everyone's using sleep trackers, but nobody's learning the techniques to improve their sleep. So clearly, like, I have a bone to pick with sleep trackers, but that's a long conversation. So we should continue to chat about that. So you should reach out to me, please, and we'll talk it through. You can get sleep studies done at home, though, can't you? Home equipment from the lab. So, okay, there's two different types of sleep studies. There's the in-lab study, which is called a PSG, a polysomnogram. That's when you go into the lab and a sleep tech will put all the sensors on your head and some on your face and your chest and your legs and your finger. You get a little pulse oximeter to measure your blood oxygen level and some breathing sensors. Mostly what that's for is to look for sleep apnea. But in the lab, you can also assess whether you have REM behavior disorder because you go into REM sleep, but your muscle tone is still high. Very technical stuff. And then there's a home sleep test, which is just for sleep apnea. So that's just the breathing, the belt the respiratory belt that goes around your chest, and the finger sensor that measures your pulse and your blood oxygen level. So what's the question though? Like there are home sleep tests you can get. You get that ordered from your sleep doctor, and your insurance will cover it. And maybe they mail it to you. Maybe you have to go to the clinic to pick it up. Bring it home. You put it on before you go to bed. Take it off in the morning, and then they download the data, look through it, and assess whether you have sleep apnea or not. My husband, who's a Vietnam vet, used to have a recurring nightmare of an animal, a prey animal, like a wolf or a bear, in his face snarling. I would wake him up because he would be almost in tears that I asked him what he was dreaming. I always thought it was an unresolved trauma. Does this make sense from your education? Yes, 100%. So we all have this predisposition because, again, our ancestors lived in that world where bears, wolves, lions, saber-toothed tigers, famine, starvation, another war, like another tribe was coming after you. Like they're life-threatening situations every single day for so much of our ancestors' lives throughout hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years that we evolved. And it just stopped like 100 years ago to where we're all safe. And the brain doesn't know that. The brain still is hardwired to show us what the threats could be in our dreams. And then for combat veterans who actually go into battle and face life-threatening situations and see their friends die and have to fight for their lives and fight for other people's lives, it's only natural that that predisposition that we all have, that part of the brain, will respond and go into protection mode. And the way that it goes into protection mode is by having recurring nightmares and showing that individual the threat over and over and over again to simulate the threatening situation. And it could be a representation of the threatening situation, like, he was in Vietnam, but he's dreaming about bears and wolves. It's a representation, it's an analogy, it's a metaphor. Or for a lot of people with PTSD, it's a direct, accurate reoccurrence of the traumatic events that they've been through. So it's very, very serious because it's so awful. It's such a vivid reliving of the worst experiences that they've ever had. So there are lucid dreaming techniques that they can learn where they just realize, okay, it's not real. It's not really happening. It's just a dream. Usually when you're having a nightmare, you don't know that it's just a dream. You think it seems real. There's no indication that it's not real. There's no indication that it's just a dream. But if you know lucid dreaming, if you learn the techniques, you can realize, oh my God, this is not actually happening. It's just a dream. Then you have the opportunity to transform it and make it more pleasant. There's also imagery rehearsal therapy, which I highly recommend you look into because there's more support out there for this form of therapy for people with PTSD nightmares. And there's also medications you can take, which I don't think that I think there's a taboo and a stigma against taking medications, but medication is necessary for a lot of people and it's very helpful. And you can do medication and behavioral therapy and then eventually wean yourself off of the medication. So talk to a doctor, talk to a therapist, a mental health professional, specifically about PTSD nightmares. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and I hope we continue the conversation. I hope I can talk to you guys a lot more. So have a good one. Bye-bye.